Welcome, everyone, to Right Away After Party. We're happy you're here. I'm Nick.
And I'm Kat.
And today we're talking about plotting the plot. And plot can be so confusing to a lot of people. And we're about to break it down into some very simple, understandable terms. So
hopefully. Now, whether you're a writer or a beginning writer or a seasoned writer or a kind of a dreamy, hopeful writer, understanding how a plot works can really help you.
yes, exactly. So it's basically like the backbone of the story, would you say? Like it would be like kind of the spinal cord.
Yeah. Remember when you were in high school and you wrote the research paper and they asked you to make a little outline?
Yes.
Well, that's
kind of what plot is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I think plot for me, like I remember like one time I took a class about plot, and I think this is like one of the definitions that I really hung on to, because a long time ago it used to be so mystifying, plot. I was like, what is this plot thing? And an instructor told me that the plot is the vehicle the character gets into and takes along the journey. It pushes and pulls and escorts the character throughout the story, and it's external. So there can be internal plots, but those are internal, and there's an external plot. And hopefully at the end, they all come together. They merge together like a great train wreck. So
wait a minute.
That's what I've always been
some
told.
depth to the simplicity. Wait a minute. So what you're saying is the main character gets in the car,
Yes, or the train. Yeah.
or the train, or the plane, or the motorbike. Ooh, let's have a motorbike. Zzz.
Usually against their own will. Usually they're kidnapped or put in there. Or sometimes
I
they go.
see.
Or sometimes
So
they go.
basically, it's just another kind of description of the hero's journey.
Very similar, yeah. I think the hero's journey is probably the easiest way to get into plot, because it, especially if you're character driven writer like myself, I love the hero's journey. It's probably the one I always tend to use.
Yeah. So the hero's journey is written by or put together by Joseph Campbell.
Mm-hmm.
And Joseph Campbell, what he did, he was last century, okay, very smart man, very deep researcher. He kind of went through all the different types of stories in different countries to see what sorts of similarities there were between the great big stories that are carried throughout generations.
Yes.
And that's where he noticed this commonality and how we gravitate towards that type of a story, the hero's journey, which all starts off with the call to adventure.
Yeah.
And usually the call to adventure is like, no, I don't want to do that. I'm not good enough. I'm comfortable where I am. But there's sort of, and then they get started on their journey.
Yes. Yeah. I love that.
And then they have trials and failures and trials and failures, and they kind of come to new skills and they practice the new skills, and they didn't quite learn it enough. And so they have that sort of lowest moment in the book. Usually, I think the same mentor that taught you the thing about the car may have been the same one that taught me this. When you get to the middle of the book or the middle of the film, that's the sort of the mini death or the mini collapse when you think, I can't do this anymore.
The darkest hour.
Yeah, dark night of the soul. And that's when the hero is somehow on the floor.
Yes. And usually alone. Usually they're all alone at that point.
There you go.
There's no other characters with them for some strange reason. Even if they have a whole cast of characters, all of a sudden they're alone.
They're all alone. And then comes the revelation, right? Bingo. And finally, all the things begin to come together. And eventually, dun, 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 they're back in the real world. And they're changed and they're better. And we all go through it as people, and we yearn for these stories, don't we?
Yes. Yeah. I think what you just described is kind of like the idea of acceptance. Like, even like if you think about it, like if something challenging happens to you and you go through all this, like, trying to be resistant to that change because you don't want that change. And then all of a sudden you hit this bottom where it's like this deep, dark bottom. And then you kind of accept that, okay, I have to step into this change. Like there's just no getting around it. Like I've tried everything to get out of this change. And then now all of a sudden, now that you've reached acceptance, everything's going to kind of go smooth sailing and you're going to get out of this. But then there's that last little bit of challenge at the very end, usually, because now it's like, not only do you accept the change, but now you have to live the change. The change is not now part of you. It's not just this external thing anymore. So that's what I'm talking about when the external and then internal meet, and it's just like you become, whatever that was. So
Okay.
and I love the idea, and I think it's very realistic to real life. And I think that's why it's such a a popular type of plot, because who doesn't have that in their real life? You're forced into a new job, or you're let go of an old job and you got to find a new job, and you don't want the new job, but then you have to accept the new job, and then all of a sudden the new job turned out to be better than the old job. I mean, that's very simplistic plotting right there.
I mean, after all, we are the heroes of our own life journey.
Yeah, exactly.
And how many things are we called to in our lives that we resist and resist and resist?
Yes, exactly. So I think it's a really great way and easy idea to for plot. And I was trying to think of some other ways of describing plot, because I know that everyone wants it to be complex and you want to get into the whole inciting incident and all that. But I mean, if you think about it, it's just if you think about the character, and for me, I always start with what does my character want?
Yeah.
How is
Hold on, you just said something that was important. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think it's important to let people know, especially if they're new. You talked about the inciting event.
Yes.
Want to just talk about that for a bit more?
So the inciting event, there can be multiple. It doesn't have to necessarily be one. It could have happened previously.
Keep it simple. Let's keep it one.
Inciting incident is something that interjects itself into the main character's life that's going to disrupt it. Something very disrupting. And it could be anything.
Right. And in the hero's journey, that would be the call to adventure. So in this other kind of plotting, it's called the inciting event. Okay, carry on.
Yeah. Yes. And so in my book, my fantasy book, the one of the inciting events happens off page. So as soon as you turn on to page 1, the inciting event has already happened. Her sister has stopped breathing and she's rushing her to the hospital. So that event happened off screen. And sometimes that's a great way to get to get into your character. But then that's not the main inciting incident, obviously. It's just one. So there's sometimes you can have multiple inciting incidents. It doesn't have to just be one major, event. And a lot of times, if there's many inciting incidences, it kind of gives you that feeling like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen next to this poor character?
But if you're a beginner, probably stick to one inciting event.
I mean, there could be just one major event that happens.
One is a good place to start. It's like one point of view, right? Don't do multiple points of view if you're new.
Oh no, this is definitely
threads together.
This is definitely one point of view that I'm speaking of. It's just that my character goes through many different little.
Understand, but I think it could be tricky for somebody who's new, not for a seasoned writer. No.
Yeah.
But since we're talking to all different levels of writers, I think it's important just to sort of put it out there that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to event. Yeah, I think it goes back to what kind of book are you writing again? That's what we used to talk about before. And, are you writing a quieter book? Are you writing an action book? Are you writing an adventure book? Are you writing a love story? Your inciting events are going to, change and shift for that reason too.
Yeah, we only have a few minutes left. So we have the inciting event and then.
Yes. And then you move into the, the trials and tribulations usually. So this is when your character is faulting at everything and kind of failing and trying. And, my character, is trying to escape. That's all she cares about is getting out. And so she tries everything to get out and nothing is working. And so that, it can be something so simple as that. What is your character fighting against? Or is your character being trained for something? Is your character, being pushed into, a position of wealth, a position of power that they don't want. There's different things that you can thrust at your character and just have them fail. And then comes that darkest hour you were talking about, where they have to like make this, ultimate decision, almost like a sacrifice of themselves to really, fit into like this new part of their lives. So let go of this idea that you had, this ideal that you had, and then move on forward. That's why
sometimes, how they tell us that we should bring our own experiences into the story. Think about the time when you went through the struggle, don't want to accept something, don't want to accept it, don't want to accept it. And you get to the point where you're just like crushed and so broken, and suddenly you make a change. Suddenly you see that. Suddenly you take a step to the left instead of always taking a step to the right. Lean into that feeling. How does it feel? And you want to somehow apply that to your character who's at their lowest point.
Yes. And I think a good way of doing this too is like, just pick any movie you love, fast forward to like kind of the middle end, and you'll see exactly what we're talking about. Almost every single movie has this moment where a character is alone. Usually it's raining. Usually they're on their knees, or they're laying down, or they've fallen down, or they're beat up, or they're, whatever. And usually they're close to the ground. Like, cause they're almost like, on your knees, like just like begging for like this to just be over, whatever this is. And okay, I accept it. Okay, fine. I'm going to carry on.
Yeah.
So it's just like that moment, but
yes. And then comes the up.
Yes.
Turn in the
and then all of a sudden they're winning every challenge. All of a sudden they're
almost winning every time. Yes.
Yeah. They're becoming better at what they were trying to avoid doing.
Exactly. And then they keep coming closer and closer to the end, where there is this lovely part, which is called when all the pieces come together in this great big, very tense scene.
The resolution.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or the climax, I guess
the climax, the
resolution, the final
act.
Exactly.
You want to take the action as high as you can. And when you think you took it high enough, take it a little bit more.
Yes.
You can always dial it back later, or when your beta readers or your editors say, a bit too much, you're going too far. You can always dial it back, but always push through, because there's always.
Yes. You bring the character to the point where they're like the audience is like, how are they going to get out of this? It's that feeling, like, how are they going to get out of this?
Exactly. And last of all, we have the denouement, lovely French word, which means tying up all the loose ends and kind of explaining what happened after in other words, allowing the reader to breathe a little bit, allowing the reader to go, oh, so that's what happened. Oh, and
Yes. And then I love to end with just a teeny tiny little cliffhanger, usually at the end. If it's a series, if not, then I just leave it alone.
Yeah. Well, you sort of have to have an idea, but it doesn't always have to be that way. Sometimes you might write a perfectly good book and then later decide, oh, I just really enjoyed those characters, and I think I want to talk to them again or have them in my life. I'm trying to turn off my timer. There we go. Because we've reached the end of our time.
We reached the end. Oh, so sad. Well, I'm so happy everyone joined us today. And if you liked us, subscribe and share it with your friends. And it was such a pleasure, Kath. I love speaking with you.
Well, same here, because we spark off each other, but also you remind me of things, and when I say something, it reminds you of something else. So it's a fascinating little weave of a journey.
Yeah, I love it.
Like Nick said, if any of this helped you, please give us a thumbs up. Give us a thumbs up and subscribe, because we try to do this every week because we love what we do.
We do. We love what we do. We want to share whatever we learn. So,
all right,
dear friends.
Yeah, see you next time.